Good evening.
Our next interviewee this evening is Michael J. McCaffrey. Welcome.
Thank you.
Would you like to make an opening statement?
I certainly would, yes.
We'll start my handy floor.
First of all, I'd like to thank you for inviting me for an interview. And I want to say thank you for the hard work and dedication that you put in your position as commissioners. I know it's not an easy job. You put a lot of time in, a lot of effort in, and you should be commended for that. I want to tell you a little bit about myself. I know you've heard things about me, read things about me. I want to tell you a little more about myself. I grew up in Warwick, in the Hotsey section of Warwick. My mother and father, Anna G. McCaffrey, have passed away. My mother most recently on Valentine's Day of this year. Both my parents worked while we were in school. My mother was a school teacher as a special education teacher, and my father was an attorney. They encouraged hard work and public service. I have four siblings, and during summers, my brothers and I, we co-hogged on Narragansett Bay bull rigging. I always said that was the best summer job you could have. I graduated from Providence College, went to Suffolk University Law School, graduated from Suffolk University Law School, and started practicing law in 1989 with my sister Mary and my father. Working in a family practice is a unique situation. I was fortunate as a lawyer in 1989 that my father gave me a case to take on. It was against a lawyer from Pawtucket, a seasoned lawyer from Pawtucket. I was prepared as much as I could be prepared. I went to court. I spent the day in court, had a hearing in court, went back to the office, and my father said with a smile on his face, "How'd you make out?" He said, "You're all set for now." How many people have that opportunity in the practice of law? In the 1990s, I was an assistant solicitor for the city of Warwick. I worked for the school department and I did district court work. I've tried cases in all the courts in Rhode Island, as well as in municipal courts in Rhode Island. I've also argued in the U.S. District Court for Rhode Island. I've handled both criminal and civil matters. In 1993, I was fortunate enough to meet my wife. My wife is a daughter of immigrants. She's the first person in her family to go to school. She went to URI, graduated with a master's degree and bachelor's degree in nursing, and she's currently a school nurse teacher in the city of Warwick. We have 4 children, my son Michael, and I have 3 daughters, Kaylin, Brenna, and Deirdre. My wife and I still live in Warwick. If it weren't for my family and my wife, I wouldn't be the person that I am today. In the McCaffrey family, it was important that you did public service in one form or another. Right now, I'm a member of the Volunteers of Warwick School, a member of the Connecticut Village Association, and I'm on the board of directors of Thrive Behavioral Health. Thrive Behavioral Health is an organization that helps people who are in recovery, whether it's drug addiction, mental health issues. In addition, I was a member of the Rhode Island Senate for 28 years. I served in numerous positions in the Senate, rising to the rank of the majority leader, and I served as the Senate Judiciary Chairman for a number of years. Being in the Senate was a great experience. Running for election is a great time because you're out there meeting people, listening to what their issues are, and knowing that every person is different, every person has different issues. While I was in the Senate, I was fortunate enough to be a Senate representative on the Justice Reinvestment Commission. That was a commission that was put together by the governor at the time to study the justice system in the state of Rhode Island, mainly the criminal justice system in the state of Rhode Island, to see why people are in the justice system. It was determined that a lot of people who are in the justice system are there because of alcohol issues, drug issues, and mental health issues. And it was important to say, let's address their issues on the front end so that they don't end up in prison down the road. I also participated in many of the revisions to the expungement law. That goes a long way because a number of people had two misdemeanors on their record, and that would be on there for life, and it would often be an impediment to get a job or even coach their kids' sporting events. I was glad that I was able to help out in that. In addition, over the time, we did create, as a result of legislation, the Veterans Treatment Calendar in District Court and the Mental Health Calendar in the District Court. These are important because the mental health issues are becoming more and more prevalent in society. The District Court is a court of general jurisdiction. It hears matters both criminal and civil, and a large volume of matters. I've been fortunate to work with different individuals navigating difficult situations, whether it be in the practice of law, in volunteer work, or my practice of law. It's a culmination of this experience that I feel that I'm qualified to sit on the district court. Lastly, I know my time is running out, but I feel it's important that I respond to the comments that individuals made before this committee last week. Like many public officials, my understanding of these matters has evolved over time. I've listened, I've learned and grown, both personally and professionally. And I have members of my family who are members of those communities. And I believe that the growth in essential equality is important in any judge. Also, I understand that some of my past legislative votes have been brought forward. I would just ask that you look at the time that those votes were taken and the broader legislative process that was involved with that. As both chair of the Judiciary Committee and the majority leader in the Senate and a member of the leadership team, a number of these pieces of legislation that were discussed last week would not have come to the Senate floor if it was not for leadership decisions. And I've always treated everyone with dignity and respect, both in the public and out of public service. And if I'm appointed to the bench, I will continue to ensure that every person who enters my courtroom feels seen, heard, and equally treated under the law. I would request that you ask for your vote as an Associate Justice of the Rhode Island District Court and move my name to the Governor. And I'm available to answer any questions that any committee members have.
Thank you. So I have told all the candidates tonight that I have been asked by a number of members of the public to ask a question of all candidates this evening, and I have, and so I will ask you that question, but I think based on what you just said and the fact that, as you alluded to, we have heard a lot of testimony like on that topic, I will probably tweak it a little. So I think first I will read the question to you and then change it a little so that you can answer. And so the question is whether you personally and professionally support the rights of people to reproductive health care, including abortion, and the rights of the LGBTQIA community to marriage, health care, and bodily autonomy equal to all other Rhode Islanders. And so I know that you just spoke a little about the evolution of your beliefs over time, and also the fact that some legislation was able to reach the Senate floor because, only because I should say, the leadership allowed it to do so. And so based on all of that, I guess the question is whether you think that your personal beliefs and your record in the Senate would serve as any type of hindrance if you were to become a district court judge, and your ability, in what's been called the People's Court, to treat everyone fairly and with dignity. Well, let me first say I do have 3 daughters, so rights of women are very, very important to me. I don't believe that my political views or my political influences on issues would be something that I would take to the bench with me. It doesn't deserve to be on the bench. As a judge, you have to listen to the facts, be neutral, and then apply the law, the state law, whatever the state law is at this time. I know that the Senate did pass the codifying Roe v. Wade when I was in the Senate, and that was, I think, in 2019. And in addition, with respect to LGBTQ plus rights, I think that all individuals, whatever the law is, will be protected under those rights. Thank you. Christian?
Mike, how are you?
Good.
Good. What skills or perspective did you take away from your, I think you said it's 28 years at the legislature and 36 years practicing law. What skills and perspective would you take from that and apply that to your time on the bench in district court, well, if you were appointed?
Obviously, being a legislative versus a judge is 2 different things. In the legislative process, you do a lot more negotiating and things of that nature. As a judge, you're sitting there as the trier of fact, listening to the facts and applying the law to the facts as best you can apply the law to the facts. I will say that being in the General Assembly was a great experience for me. It allowed me to go out and meet people. I met a lot of people, and more importantly, I learned a lot about the state laws. A lot of laws that change come through the General Assembly, and it's something that you pick up. I mean, I had a case, I don't want to go on, but I had a case where I was reading a statute, and the statute lists the pecking order of who has priority to determine who can cremate a body. And there was a case where the stockbroker kind of got involved and took over things, and he signed a cremation order. So just being in the General Assembly and having that, reading that statute at one point in time, he said, there's a cause of action here. So I think that's a great asset, that being in the General Assembly. And practice of law, we all have different practices of law. My practice is a small family practice. We do a number of different things. We do a lot of work in district court. We do some work in superior court. And we do a lot of work in probate court and municipal courts. I mean, so I do have a broad cross-section of the practice of law. In addition, when I was in the city solicitor's office, I was fortunate to go to federal court a number of times on a couple of education issues.
Thank you.
Tom?
I just want to let everybody in this room know, I've known Leader McCaffrey for 25 years. He's not the monster that I'm trying to make him out to be. He's a gentle guy, he's a nice guy, and I co-lobbyist for the auto body industry. He was always our go-to guy where I could call him, get an appointment, go in and talk to him about different things that we wanted to change. He spent the time with us and explained to us. Sometimes I left there happy, you're right, and sometimes I left there disappointed because he showed us where we were wrong. So he's a great teacher. He looks at things from both sides. He doesn't just root, for the Auto Body Association. He'll look at both sides of the insurance companies. And 90% of our bills that we put through are always consumer-orientated bills. And he recognized that. He taught us that. So I think he's a great leader. And being in the lead position, you take a lot of heat for everything. You get a lot of political pressure on some of your choices. A good leader always follows the president. So sometimes some of the choices may not have been close. So just want everybody to think about that. And I think he's a perfect candidate with his abilities. Thank you.
Karen?
Thank you, Crystal. Good evening, Michael. I'm Karen Flynn, and I'm a commissioner joining you this evening by Teams. My question. Nelson Mandela said, "Do not judge me by my successes. Judge me by how many times I have fallen down and gotten back up again." Please, tell me about a time you've fallen down and gotten back up.
I could tell you 2 times. When I was 37 years old, I had 3 young children and my wife. After Thanksgiving, I came down with pneumonia. And I was sick at home, recovering and taking the medications. I kept getting sicker and sicker and sicker. I'd go to the doctor, they'd take x-rays, and he'd send me back home. One day I went to the doctor, he listened to my lungs, he said, "You're going to the hospital." So I was at Kent County Hospital. I went in that day. My wife was working, so she came from work to the hospital. And within 12 hours, I was in the ICU unit, and they were hooking me up to all sort of IVs and respiration, and they wanted to put a vent on me. And my wife said, "Absolutely not." And she said, not put the vent with me, but I'm going to go on with another story number of years later. So I recovered, and the only thing I have is a residual cough. You may have heard a cough from someone out in the hallway there, that was me. So during COVID, my son was in law school. He wasn't feeling well. He was sick, and of course, because of my pneumonia and my wife's the nurse, we had the O2 sensor at home. So my wife put the O2 sensor on him. His O2 was a little above 80. She said, "Well, you got to go to the clinic." So we went to the walk-in clinic, my wife and my son, and during COVID, she couldn't go in with him. So he goes in, the nurse comes out and says, "We're going to call the ambulance for your son. We're going to have him go to the hospital." My wife said, "Well, they take him to Miriam Hospital because that's where she worked a number of years when she was a nurse in a hospital." They said, "No, they're not going to take him there." So my wife put him in the car, drove him up to Miriam Hospital, was trying to contact me. I was working with a client. Usually when I'm with a client, I have my phone off. And so when I finally reached her, he had been allowed in the emergency room. She couldn't get in the emergency room because they weren't letting anyone in. He got admitted, so we went home that night. The next day in the afternoon, my son calls my wife and says, they want to put me in a cardiac unit because my oxygen levels aren't coming up. So they put him in the cardiac unit, and that night, I still remember the night now, it was a Thursday night he went in. Friday night at 3 o'clock in the morning, we get a call from the hospital that they want to put my son in the ICU on a ventilator. And so my wife talks to the doctor, and the doctor says, we got to do something. He's not breathing. He's having problems breathing. So they had to sedate him and put him on a ventilator. And we couldn't get into the hospital because they said, we don't know if he has COVID. He's always tested negative for COVID, never tested positive for COVID. So the next day we were fortunate enough to get into the hospital. We went into the hospital. It's a life-changing event. We went into the hospital, and my son we went in one at a time. They wouldn't let us both went at the same time. My son's lying there on a ventilator, motionless. That's the worst thing in the world that happened to me and to my wife in our lifetime. We were fortunate that a number of days later, our son was recovered. He got out of the hospital a while after that, and he completed law school. He's practicing law. But that's a situation something that we would extremely down. We didn't know what was going to happen, and he recovered, and we were able to. We moved forward. He's only got to see doctors on a regular basis. He's actually practicing law now. So I mean, that's something that I feel was a great learning experience, and that was one of the reasons that I decided not to run for re-election. I said, I got to start to spend more time with my family. When you're in politics, during the summer when you're campaigning, it's weekends, weeknights, constantly. During the session, the longer you're there and the higher up you go in the chairs, the more time you have to put in. And so my wife and I made a decision that I'm going to step back from politics for a period of time. And so at that point in time, we decided I stepped back from politics.
Jen?
Michael, you and I have seen each other in district court for probably 25 plus years, for sure. And I have to say, you're the most compassionate person that I've ever seen in the corridor of district court. I see you talking to clients and people, and one time, you probably won't remember this, we were talking, and a young girl approached us and was interrupting our conversation. She didn't know where to go. It wasn't me that said to her, you got to go down this way to the clerk. You broke our conversation and you talked to her. She wasn't your client. You directed her where you go. I think you have a great personality that will do well on the district court. And some of the things that other people have said, that's the political side. This is the judicial side and your whole career from law and a natural transition into a judgeship. Michael, I think you'll do a fabulous job there, and I support you wholly. Thank you.
Good evening, sir. Okay.
I didn't hear you.
I said, good evening, sir. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing well, thank you. I didn't hear I heard the good evening. I didn't hear how you're doing.
Just a quick question for you. You mentioned in your beginning of this interview process that things have changed, times have changed. The way you voted is the way you voted due to bills coming onto the floor. But you also mentioned the human component of it. And I wanted to ask if you could share very briefly what human component made you change your mind or has helped you evolve your decision making?
Well, I think if you look at all of society over the last number of years, society has changed its view on a lot of those issues. Going back to the 90s, there's a number of senators, Democratic senators, who voted for Defense of Marriage Act. They have changed their views on those things. I think it's an evolution of the issues and getting the issues out there so that people become aware of them. I mean, I have, like I said, I have family members who are members of those communities. We get along great. We get along great. You know, it's a question of things have evolved over time.
Thank you.
Gina? Welcome. Good to see you again.
Yeah.
So I don't even know if I have a question here. I think I just want to make a comment on something you said. You said that there is difference between the political realm and the judicial, which clearly, okay. But you have a ability to negotiate. You have ability to bring people together. You mentioned it. All of your references state the same thing. There's, dozens and dozens of letters that say, great listener, respectful, disciplined, understands the issues, and treats people with dignity. So as a, family practitioner myself,
yeah.
right, so that brings a whole, I'm gonna get to that. In many circumstances, a great jurist will bring the parties to resolve the issue. Do you agree with that?
I agree with that, yes.
Because the last thing that's needed is more parties and others being involved and being cantankerous. It's about, do you have the skill to bring these parties to a resolution without wasting more time in the court? And that's a skill.
I would think that in a number of situations, I would be able to do that, but in certain cases, as you know, and the other lawyers on this committee know, you're never going to resolve some issues. You have to have the judge make a decision in them. But most cases, as you know, do get resolved by either negotiating between the parties or having the judge be involved in the negotiating process.
Right.
To give his or her recommendations as to what they may think.
And as far as the family law practice, the well-experienced in practicing in a firm with family, I think that experience also brings some good qualities you learn to survive that will be helpful on the bench. So
Thank you.
best of luck to you. Jason.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My question, what judge or what types of judges would you model yourself after on the bench?
That's an interesting question because I've been in front of a number of them in the state of Rhode Island. Most recently, I would say I have a case that Judge Leach has mediated and brought us almost to the finish line. I think we're going to get across the finish line. But if it wasn't for the way he mediated with the parties, it was an emotional issue, and he was able to get the emotion out of the parties a little bit and get them to agree on certain things, and hopefully we're able to get it across the finish line.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you.